A sword in my car.
Yep.
Can I bring
Hey
it
guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I have my friend. First time on it, man. What'd you do today?
I managed to go,
Don't entertain him.
what, 3-1 with the best actors.
Okay, and what's your name, by the way, for everyone who doesn't know, who's not from our locals?
Everyone just calls me Tom, but full name's Thomas.
For sure, Thomas. Before we get started with the deck, is there any shouts or anything you want to give, man?
MTV is a cuck.
Hey, that's one way to start. Let's get straight to deck profile then, brother.
Okay, cool. I only say that because he plays it. I only say that because he plays the best actors too, but his profile sucks.
Most definitely, dude.
But yeah, here's the best actors. They recently got some new support that really helped them out. Beforehand, they were just kind of unga boonga. They had like a 3,000 attack point beat stick that they would try to summon. But outside of that, they didn't really have much of a game plan. But the new support from Hypernova really helps out the deck. It still loses to a lot of stuff because pendulums, Secret Village, fucking anti-spell, stuff like that. But outside of that, it has a pretty good resource loop. It can play through a lot of negates. Just floodgates it has trouble with. They also have a lot of soft ones per turns because they were kind of designed as like a shitty deck. So because of that and the new support, they can kind of take advantage of the soft ones per turns now. So the main boss monster of the deck is a Superstar. Run 3 copies of him. His summon can't be responded to, which is really nice. So he protects like a bunch of my guys on Pendulum summoned. He also gets around Ash Blossom because he sets Abyss scripts from the deck instead of adding them to the hand. They have a lot of ways of getting around like Abyss, Ash Blossom and Droll and Lockbird. So thanks to that, and even they also have kind of a way to get around anti-spell fragrance because again, they place the stuff from the deck automatically.
Yeah, that's
so it
good.
Really helps a lot. But yeah, unfortunately, the deck doesn't really have a way of getting over monsters with more attack than 2,500. They have like one sort of non-targeting bounce, but outside of that, they have a really tough time against like monsters like Dragoon and stuff. Like even Chaos Max kind of screws the deck over, but they can kind of play around it as long as you don't get too screwed. But yeah, Superstar is really great. He's like the go-to boss monster. I like to summon, like try to get all 3 copies out and go for an OTK. While I also have the Link monster on field too, just for it to have enough damage. But yeah, he's a soft once per turn as well. So like if I get each copy, can search for an Abyss script as well. And if I cycle him out, like go to a Link monster and then special summon him back again, that same copy can use his effect again. The next card is Mellow Madonna, run 3 copies as well. This card's a card you have to kind of play around because the deck is very xenophobic, so it generates a lot of advantage, but there's not really a lot of generic stuff you can use that advantage with right now because they're only extra deck monsters are Link 1 and Link 2. But Mellow Madonna is the main Xenolock card of the deck. She's basically like a monkey board. You pay 1,000, you can search for any Abyss actor from your deck to the hand, but once you go use that effect, you can't special summon anything besides Abyss actor pendulum monsters for the rest of the turn. They even lock themselves out of the Link monsters because of that. But her monster effect is pretty useful if you activate an Abyss script while she's on the field. She special summons another Abyss actor from the deck, level 4 or lower, and you can use that to go into bigger bodies because that effect doesn't lock you. So you can use it to make like Appaloosa with more material and whatnot. Next card is Curtain Razor. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with this card because it was a pretty good generic card for a free body. But he actually does have a pretty good recovery effect. I can pitch a Abyss script from the deck to the graveyard to get back one of my Abyss actors from the extra deck, and combined with another card, I can use that as also a way to search for an Abyss script as well. And again, he's just a free body, just useful for that. There's a lot of there's a Link 1 that the deck uses that's really helpful. So having him to be able to go into it is useful for starting on my big plays. Same thing with extras. He's also a free body. He's kind of like Cyber Dragon in the sense of like if my opponent controls a monster, I can special summon him from the Pendulum Zone. And then I can also tribute extras to set a card in the Pendulum Zone from my deck as well. Wild Hope is the next card. He can manipulate my scales. That effect was a lot more useful back when I ran the level 8 monster. But now I don't, so I really don't need to use that scale manipulation, but it basically makes it to where no matter what my other scale, I can always summon level 7 or lowers.
Gotcha.
And then when he gets popped, he can search for an Abyss actor, and there's a way to manually pop him as well.
Yeah, it's nasty. I was first-hand witness.
And he also has like an attack increase effect that's just enough to kind of help close the gap on OTK. Because one of the problems the deck has is like, it sometimes just falls a little short of OTK, and that attack increase effect can sometimes make the difference, even if it's only an extra like 300. 2 copies of Comic Relief. He's kind of like a creature swap for the deck. I can take opponent's monster and swap control of it and give them control of one of my monsters, and then my monsters get effects when they get popped. So like if I give them a Wild Hope and I take one of their monsters, the Wild Hope effect will trigger and I'll get a search off of it as well. And it's a permanent swap as well, so you know if I can take a really important monster from them. Sassy Rookie's a one-of just because it's kind of difficult to get rid of for some boards. Not really difficult, but like it just has like once per turn battle protection and effect protection, and that's just enough of an annoyance to like kind of stall for a turn. Because the problem with the Bisectors is like they don't really. Their main gimmick is, I guess, how to describe this. Their main gimmick is kind of setting up for an OTK on the next turn. So that you kind of build a board, not really to win the turn that instantly, but kind of to set up for the OTK the next turn. And he kind of helps with that. Liberty Dramatist is kind of a weird card because she's worded in such a way to help trigger the floating effect of the Abyss scripts. And I've had a lot of people ask me like, what the hell does it do? Because it uses like the word like owner and controller, and people, you know, apparently don't know what owner means in Yu-Gi-Oh card text. But essentially, she lets me trigger an Abyss script from my deck. Anyone I choose. Well, it's kind of luck based. I have to reveal 3 Abyss scripts. Yeah. Then at random it gets picked, and then during the end phase, because it's a lingering effect, it gets popped. The only real downside is the fact that I have to give them control of this card from my Pendulum Zone. So I'm giving them a free body, but the Abyss scripts have such explosive pop effects that I think it's worth it. Now, and also because she's a scale 8, because the only other high scale I have is the comic reliefs. So I kind of need her for the high scale as well. And the only other high scale Abyss Actor kind of sucks. So it's like the best of what I got, but I've generally benefited more from her effect and gotten screwed over from them using it as free material. This is one of my cards, like just generic, just kaiju stuff. I was running Nibiru, but a lot of people here play Sprite, so Nibiru is kind of dead a lot. And it's just kind of useful for getting rid of just like one card. I was thinking about running the Dark Fiend type kaiju. I think it's like the multi-dimensional one, just because it's level 7. And it's Fiend type, so technically if I ever get it going first, I could Pendulum Summon it in some cases and use it for like an Exceed Summon, or just to use it to go into the Link 2 because it requires a Fiend. But Game of Steel is just better just because of the attack increase. If that Dark Kaiju was a little bit weaker, I would go with that one, but just that 2800 attack is just a little bit annoying to get over sometimes. The field spell is Abyss Actor Playhouse. Now this card is like a really nightmare. I've had Judge called on me so many times about this card, and I made sure to do a lot of research on this card to make sure it works the way it does. But essentially, one, it's a Abyss script search. Yeah, that's useful. But the second effect is if I control a Pendulum Summon Abyss Actor, it essentially acts as a monster negate that also forces my opponent to pop my Abyss scripts, which have really explosive effects when they get popped by my opponent's monster effects. So like one of them like makes me like summon 5 monsters, another one lets me like draw 5 cards, another one lets me like non-targeting bounce. And with the new Link 2, I can basically use it as like a monster negate, where I can like chain the Link 2 to my opponent monster effect, and as long as I have a Pendulum summoned Abyss Actor on the field, this card will override their effect. So I can use it to get around like Nibiru if they're like gonna Nibiru me when I'm trying to like end and stuff like that. But this card, until the Hypernova support came out, this card was really hard to search. But thanks to the Link 2, it's much more playable. And I don't even run Terraforming anymore because of it. This card is like stupid, you know, like your archetype is ass when you just get a free +1 searcher. Like, it start main phase, I get to search for an Abyss Actor or an Abyss script. Most of the time it gets Ash Blossom, but it's still a good card to have. Run 3 copies of it. It's just basically mandatory. It's like the best card of the archetype. The only downside is you have to use it at the start of the main phase, so sometimes you might want to do something out of order to get around, especially if you know they have the negate and they're going to bait it. You wish you could play around it, but you just can't. Dramatic Story is another new card that came out. It really helps with like the flexibility of the deck. It basically makes a lot of hands that used to be really bricky a lot less bricky now, and you can kind of like make a lot of more extended plays. So like beforehand, when you would make the Link 1 monster, you really couldn't do much afterwards. But thanks to cards like these, you can do a lot more after the Link monster, after you go into your Link 1. Plus it also, when it gets popped, it has the it lets me bounce 2 cards on my opponent's side of the field, non-targeting, so it gets over stuff that protects itself. And again, that's why I run that crappy card that gives them a control, gives them a free body, because you know, I can bounce this card back and then also bounce a problematic card on their field. So that's why like stuff like this, I'm reluctantly forced to run, because Next, Rise of the Abyss. Rise of the Abyss King. It pops cards, face-up cards on my opponent's side of the field, equal to the number of different named Abyss actors on my side of the field. When it gets popped, I get to search for 2 cards. And if I control level 7 or higher Abyss actor, they cannot respond to this card's activation. So it's really useful for getting over stuff. Unfortunately, it's targeting, so some stuff has protection to it. But it's because of cards like these, that stuff like Anti-Spell Fragrance and Secret Village, whatnot, kind of screw me over. Because this is like my main way of getting over cards like those, like problematic Floodgate cards. And unfortunately, like if they activate that, I have to set this for a turn, and then, you know. But, you know, hopefully I can keep them from actually activating it. I've surprisingly been able to play around Secret Village and Anti-Spell recently. I thought the deck was going to struggle a lot more. Abyss-Tainment, I'm only really running this card because it's kind of like the Neo-Alias of the deck, where like it just so happens to be an Abyss script that's continuous that I can activate kind of whenever, because I have some card effects. Sometimes I need just a card to pop with my own card effects, or just to trigger Mellow Madonna's effect without actually doing anything. And this card kind of fits it. You know, I contribute an Abyss actor, get Abyss script from my deck. From my graveyard back to my deck. And if it gets popped, I can special summon it like 5 times from my main deck. But they do have another card called an Abyss Prop, which I would run instead. But because it's called an Abyss Prop, I can't search it. But it would be way better than this card. It's just, unfortunately, the stupid wording of it doesn't let you search it. And then 1 copy of Opening Ceremony. It's basically just a cheesy card to gain life points when I need it, but also it's mainly because its popping effect lets me draw like 5 cards, so it's really useful for getting stuff back. But again, just 1 copy of it because life point gain isn't enough, and I think isn't worth it. And I think the other explosive effects are more worth it, but it's really funny seeing people's reaction to this card going off and then drawing 5, and everyone's like, what the fuck? Like, that card's cracked. It's like, no, before the new support of Abyss actors didn't really, you know, wasn't able to do anything with the +5. Now they kind of can. Just 1 copy of Prosperity because I just only have 1 copy. They don't really get to use their extra deck outside of like their Link 1 and their Link 2 that much. There's a lot of fluff in the extra deck just in case, but I rarely ever get to go into most of it. And then 3 copies of Evenly Matched. Again, it's just a good 2nd card because I can't control going first, so I just want to have some stuff for going second, and in my opinion is the best like card for that. You can still even use it even if you're going first. If you're not able to make a big board, you can still just set it and like hopefully damage your opponent a lot if they go for a big field. And that's the main deck.
Before we go like into the extra deck, if any changes, would you make any like to your main deck?
So like the main changes I would make. Evenly is kind of just like a format dependent card, and same thing with the Game of Seal. These are kind of like the 6 cards that kind of just change around, depending on what I feel like the matchup at the shop's going to be. If I had to change something else, Liberty Dramatist is another card I'm still kind of iffy on. Again, it forces my opponent to activate the Abyss scripts, because some of those Abyss scripts can turn the tide of a bad matchup. But I don't like the fact that I still have to give them a free body. But if they ever get a better scale 8, I would swap this card out. Same thing with like Comic Relief. I don't really get to use the creature swap effect that often, but it's still useful to have because it's a searchable creature swap. But if they ever get better high scales, I would definitely swap these out in the future, or maybe at least lower the ratios because I'm running 2 of each. But the deck isn't necessarily trying to be like super competitive. It's just a cheesy, fun deck. I just like the aesthetic of the deck. There's demonic, goofy theater actors. I wasn't expecting the deck to do as well, especially with a lot of the matchups here. But again, because of the fact of how relatively unknown the deck is, it kind of can have some explosive plays without my opponent realizing, like, oh shit, that was the choke point, I should have did something then. The deck does have a lot of choke points, so just randomly negating one of my card effects can have more of an impact than you might have thought. Because sometimes, like, it's not necessarily that I was going for the search, it'd be like I'm going for the pop effect of the search, like empty out my scales, and them stopping them with like an Ash Blossom is what screws me over more than not being able to get the search. So it's like stuff like that where they screw me over, but they probably not for the reason they think they did.
So you wouldn't play any hand traps like Imperm, Ash, or you wouldn't like?
I did run Ash originally as a main deck card, and then I put it into the side deck, and then I took it out of the side deck because I feel like Ash just isn't enough. It causes bricky hands of pendulum decks in general.
Yeah.
So I had to be I did a lot of trial and error of like what cards I would run in my main deck, and then what cards I'll run in my side deck. I don't even run Lightning Storm anymore in my side deck because a lot of the back row heavy decks that play here don't really care about getting the back row pop. They'll just chain like Dimensional Barrier, not care, or have something to stop it. So I'd rather something more impactful like Dick and Sicke instead.
Would you play a third pot if you had it? Like 3 pots?
Yeah, I would probably play 3 pots if I had a copy, but I'm not stressing too much. Again, the deck's mostly budget. Like outside of like the generic staples, like you can buy like the entire deck for like $15 or less. Like I think they have like one card that's like $1 or $2.
I love that. Well, look, I don't want to hold you up too much. Let's go to extra deck, brother.
Okay, so extra deck is the main 6 cards here I'm going to be using are these. This is Link 1 and the Link 2. Link 1 helps with bricky hands, but it also acts as a play extender now with the new support. But it's also Xenolocks me, so I have to be careful going into it. So if there's better plays, I can go into afterwards. But the main star of the show is a freaking super producer. This card is so good. He basically like, if I have the field, he searches for the field spell, he sets my scales up. I can chain his effect to a monster effect my opponent activates to essentially turn him into a monster negate, and it's really useful because not only am I negating their effect, but if I have a Abyss script set, it's going to get popped, and you know I plus off of that as well. So again, this card is super good. I really hope one day they get a Link 3. But this card, in my opinion, is what carries the deck the hardest. It's the main reason why the deck is like even remotely playable now. And then the rest of the extra decks is like kind of just generic stuff just in case, you know, just Beyond the Pendulum, Unicorn, Raiders Knight, Arc Rebellion, Absolute, Vortex, Appaloosa, Goddess, and then like not Waking the Dragon, Ultimate Falcon. I had as Awakening the Dragon the target that I experimented with, and I just haven't taken it out because most of this extra deck I can't really go into. Yeah. Because the Xeno locks itself pretty hard, but I keep it just in case.
Nah, we're gonna get you 3 pots. Don't worry about that.
And the side deck, just kind of generic stuff. The deck loses really hard to evenly match, so I have stuff to kind of stop it. I have 3 copies of Lancia.
I haven't made a comment earlier, but your card art is hilarious, man.
Yeah, I just like to draw on like my generic 3 of staples because, like, in my opinion, I'm never gonna get rid of them. Yeah. So the value of them doesn't really matter to me. So even if this was like a $40 card, I still wouldn't care. I'd still draw fucking polka dot boxers on it.
Hell yeah.
Just to make fun of the fact that some of these cards are really dumb and cancer. Is why I drew a dick on a evenly matched. Because I hate the card, but it's just such a necessary. Deck of Sicke to stop like back row, you know, set 5 pass kind of bullshit. Dimensional Barrier, because it's a really good side option against certain matchups, especially against like Branded and whatnot, since a lot of people here that play Branded. Another good side matchup, Royal Decree.
For the trap players and all the back row guys.
Yeah, this was mostly because of the Trap Tricks structure deck coming out. I figured a lot of people were going to be playing, you know, Trap Tricks structure deck.exe kind of bullcrap. I haven't had to use it that often, but it also helps against evenly matched because, you know, the card kind of shits
most
on
definitely. Emperor, and match, all that stuff.
Yeah, and then the most surprising card in my side deck is 3 copies of Exchange.
This card was crazy when we played our game.
Yo, yeah, like for real, like, because nobody's expecting Exchange. It's only really good if you can guarantee going first. So I did have it main deck for a while, just a meme, but I put it in my side deck as a going first side option to get knowledge of my opponent's hand and to rip important cards out of it. Because I know like Triple Tactics is technically a better card, but I think this is funnier because I get to take the card from them. So imagine taking like their deep area or their evenly. Yeah. There's like any obnoxious like card that they're gonna need, and you just take a copy of it from them. I mean, like against you earlier, I took your Jalgan, and I also gained knowledge on my opponent's hand, so I can kind of like prepare myself for what they're probably gonna do. Like if I know that if they have any outs to my board, I'll at least be prepared ahead of time to know like, okay. And again, I can manipulate what card I give them, so there's a lot of dead cards I can give them as well, by also taking a key card from them. And again, a lot of generic going second staples that people side deck in, so it's really good for ripping those out of their hand. Well, now, of course, if they have 2 copies of it, then it doesn't matter if I take one.
It's just like with talents, man. Just when you're looking in their hand, same exact thing. Well, thank you again, Thomas, for letting me deck profile. Congratulations on going X-1. What are you about to say, brother?
Thank you for doing the deck profile. Again, I think the deck's kind of like close to being like really competitive, but it just a little bit falls short to a lot of stuff. But one day when they get some more support, I think it actually will. As long as the power creep of the game hasn't like eclipsed them too much.
Well, most definitely, dude. And the reason I want to document this, just in case, like, you know, in the future, people, because like, oh, you know what? I want to see deck profile on this, you know, get a little idea here and there. And we're going to end it there, Thomas. Thank you again for letting me deck profile.
Thank you. Sorry for rambling much. I've never really done a deck profile before, so I just want to be thorough with my explanation.
No, I love
Especially since a lot of these cards, people don't really know what Abyss Hectors do, besides actual Abyss Hector players, all 3 of them.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be thorough on the explanation so people watching the video will know what the cards do and why I run this or this. Because I'm sure there'll be people who comment, like, why do you run this card? You should be running this instead. It's like, I don't want to. That's enough of a reason for me to not run that card because I don't want to.
Nah, and look, I love that, dude, because I'm the same way. I can go on videos and I'm like, dude, okay, what was the reason for running 3 of those? I don't never understand that. Well, thanks again, Thomas. Until next time, catch you guys later.